Listen, I need to tell you something about humans. Something that will make you question every tactical manual, every strategic doctrine, every single assumption you have about warfare and survival instincts. My name is Kilvar, and I am a tactical analyst for the Rexian Coalition fleet. Or, well, I was. Before I met them. Before I watched them do the impossible. Before I realized that we had fundamentally misunderstood what it meant to be human. You know what the worst part is? We thought we were prepared. We had studied their broadcasts, analyzed their historical conflicts, reviewed their military exercises. We knew they were violent. We knew they were unpredictable. What we did not know, what we could not possibly have known, was that humans do not fight like any other species in the galaxy. They do not fight for victory. They fight to the end. Let me back up. 3 cycles ago, my fleet encountered a human mining colony on the edge of the Terminus Rift. Small operation, maybe 400 humans, mostly civilians with a token security force of about 50 soldiers. The colony was designated Outpost Meridian. Unremarkable, vulnerable. Or so we thought. The initial scan was routine. Our combat coordinator, a veteran named Teln, barely glanced at the data. "Minimal defenses," he said, his mandibles clicking in what passed for a Vrexian smile. "This will be over before midday meal." I should mention that the Virexian Coalition had been at war with the Terran Federation for 6 months at this point. Not because we wanted to be. The humans had rejected our very reasonable demand to surrender 17 star systems that we claimed based on ancient territorial rights. Ancient meaning we found a probe there once, about 3,000 years ago. The humans laughed at us. Actually laughed. Broadcast our diplomatic message across their news networks with comedic commentary. The audacity. So, we went to war. And honestly, we were winning. The Terran Federation was large, yes, but spread thin. Their fleets were engaged on multiple fronts. This mining colony, Outpost Meridian, was barely worth the ammunition we would spend taking it. But orders were orders. Eliminate all human presence in Sector 19. No exceptions. Our battle cruiser, the Eternal Judgment, moved into position above the colony. Standard intimidation protocol. We broadcast the surrender terms. Vacate the facility within 2 hours or face orbital bombardment. Simple, clean. We expected panic. Maybe some desperate negotiations. What we got was silence. Just static on the communication channel for a full minute. Then a voice came through. Female, calm, almost bored. "This is Captain Reyna Holt of Terran Federation Colonial Defense, Outpost Meridian. To the Virexian vessel threatening us, I have a counter-proposal. You turn your ship around, go back to whatever spawning pool you crawled out of, and we will pretend this little incident never happened. Otherwise, well, we will have a problem." Theln looked at me. I looked at him. Our censor officer, Grix, actually laughed. It was absurd. 50 human soldiers, maybe a dozen automated defense turrets, against a battlecruiser with enough firepower to glass their entire facility. They had no fleet support. No reinforcements within a week's travel at minimum. They should have been begging for terms. "They are bluffing," Thelm said, leaning back in his command throne. "Humans always bluff when cornered. Increase power to forward weapons. Show them we mean business." We did. The Eternal Judgment's main plasma batteries began charging, a visible glow even from the surface. Our threat display showed we could reduce their colony to slag in approximately 4 minutes. Surely now they would see reason. The communication channel crackled again. Same woman. "Okay then. I guess we are doing this. Fair warning, boys. These humans bite back. Bite back." I remember those words. They haunt me still. A horrible, 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 horrible lump. The place, by the time, the stereo, so-called etiquette. The place, brackets, at, those words. They haunt me still. A horrible, 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 What happened next violated approximately 14 different tactical principles I had learned at the Vrexian War Academy. The humans did not retreat. They did not surrender. They did not even try to negotiate. Instead, they attacked us. Yes, you heard that right. 50 humans with small arms and outdated weapons platforms attacked a capital ship. It was suicide. It was insane. It was the most human thing I have ever witnessed. The first indication something was wrong came when our shields registered multiple impacts. Not from space, from the surface. The humans had modified their mining equipment into improvised mass drivers. They were literally shooting rocks at us. Chunks of iron ore accelerated to ridiculous velocities. Each impact barely scratched our shields, but that was not the point. They were not trying to destroy us, not yet. They were probing our defenses, mapping our shield frequency, learning our patrol patterns. Should we return fire? Grix asked, tentacles twitching nervously. Not yet, the Elm said. Let them waste their ammunition. It makes the cleanup easier. That was our first mistake. Assuming they would run out of ammunition. You see, humans do not run out of ammunition. They make more. On the spot, with whatever they have available, while you are shooting at them. The second wave of attacks came from orbit. Wait, how could they attack from orbit when they had no ships? Excellent question. Turns out the mining colony had a mass driver system for launching processed ore to collection points in space. The humans reprogrammed it, loaded it with everything explosive they could manufacture in 30 minutes, and fired. Not at us, at our shuttle bay. The explosion was, I will admit, impressive. The shuttles were armored, designed to withstand debris impacts, but the humans had packed their makeshift missiles with mining charges, thermal lances, even oxygen canisters rigged to detonate. The blast ripped through 2 shuttles and damaged a third. Suddenly, our ability to deploy ground troops was cut by 30%. Target their mass driver, though I noticed his mandibles were no longer clicking with amusement. Target their mass driver, destroy it. He fired. A precision plasma lance that should have vaporized the entire launching facility. Should have. The blast was perfect, directly on target. When the smoke cleared, the mass driver was indeed destroyed. It was also decoy. The real launcher was 300 meters away, camouflaged under thermal shielding. The humans had built a fake one just to waste our ammunition. Who builds decoy facilities in 30 minutes? Grix shouted. That is impossible. Clearly not, I muttered, checking the tactical display. More impacts on our shields, more rocks, more pressure. Then Captain Holtic came back on the communication channel. She was laughing, actually laughing. Nice shot, Sparkles. You want to try again, or should we just skip to the part where you run away? Then's faceplates flushed purple with rage. All weapons, fire at will. Flatten that colony. This was mistake number 2. Never let humans make you angry. They are very good at it. And while you are busy being angry, they are busy setting traps. Our plasma batteries unleashed hell on Outpost Meridian. The facility's outer structures vaporized. Entire sections collapsed into molten slag. The defensive turrets exploded one by one. It should have been over. It would have been over against any rational species. But humans are not rational. They are stubborn. There is a difference. When our bombardment paused to allow the weapons to recharge, something extraordinary happened. The humans emerged from underground bunkers we did not even know existed. Not retreating, advancing. They had jury-rigged vehicles from mining equipment covered in scrap metal armor, mounted with salvaged weapons. And they drove straight toward our landing teams that had just deployed. "Contact!" one of our ground commanders screamed over the radio. "They are everywhere!" How are they everywhere? Turns out the mining colony had extensive tunnel networks. Kilometers of them. The humans had spent the entire bombardment moving through the tunnels, repositioning, setting up ambush points. They let us think we were winning. Then they struck from every direction at once. Our soldiers were trained, professional, equipped with superior technology. But they were fighting on the humans' terms now, in close quarters, in tunnels and ruins, where our heavy weapons were useless and their knowledge of the terrain was everything. For every human we eliminated, they took 3 of ours. The math was simple and terrifying. "Pull back the ground teams," I urged Thelm. "This is not working." "We are winning," he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "Look at the casualty reports." "They are losing. They are losing faster than us," I corrected. "But they do not care. They are not trying to win. They are trying to make us quit." Thelm stared at me like I had grown a second head. "Why would they do that?" "Because it is working." It was. Our crews were rattled. The ground teams were exhausted. We had expected a quick victory. Instead, we got a battle of attrition against an enemy that refused to acknowledge when they were beaten. Captain Holt's voice returned to taunt us. "Still here, bug boys? You getting tired yet? Because we are just warming up." How were they still transmitting? We had destroyed their communications array. 3 times. They kept building new ones, with parts scavenged from our destroyed shuttles. The audacity was almost admirable. Then things got worse. Much worse. One of our frigates, the Swift Retribution, reported a problem. Their reactor was overheating. Diagnostics showed nothing wrong, but the temperature kept climbing. The chief engineer was baffled. Until they found the sabotage. Somehow, during the chaos of the initial engagement, a human infiltration team had boarded the frigate. Not through the docking bay. Not through any normal entry point. They had used magnetic climbing gear to scale the hull, cut through a maintenance hatch with thermal lances, and infiltrated the ship while we were all focused on the surface battle. Inside, they had planted devices that disrupted the reactor's cooling system. Nothing sophisticated, just crude electromagnetic emitters that interfered with the safety protocols, but effective. The Swift Retribution had to withdraw from battle to prevent a catastrophic meltdown. Just like that, our fleet's superiority was reduced. The humans had figured out they could not win a straight fight. So, they stopped fighting straight. "This is insane," Grix whispered, staring at the tactical display. "They should be dead. All of them should be dead." "They will be," Thelnis said, but he sounded uncertain now. "We just need more time." Time. That was the problem. The longer this took, the worse it looked for us. A capital ship and 3 frigates, struggling to pacify a mining colony. High Command would not be pleased. More importantly, other human colonies would hear about this, would learn from it, would prepare. I pulled up the casualty reports. The numbers were grim. Of the original 50 human soldiers, maybe 20 were still combat effective. The civilian population had taken shelter in the deepest tunnels. But those 20 humans, oh, those 20, they fought like demons. No, worse. Demons have some sense of self-preservation. These humans did not. One of them, a soldier named Marcus Webb, had single-handedly held a choke point for 4 hours. Armed with just a rifle and grenades, he had eliminated an entire squad of our troops before finally being brought down by sustained plasma fire, and even then, even mortally wounded. His last act was to detonate the explosives he had been lying on. The blast collapsed the tunnel, trapping our soldiers on the wrong side of the defensive line. Another human, a woman called Zara Lee, had reprogrammed maintenance drones to carry explosives and ram our troops. Crude, inelegant, devastatingly effective. Our soldiers started shooting at anything that moved, wasting ammunition on empty drones while the real threats crept closer. This was not war. This was madness. But it was methodical madness. Calculated chaos. Every action designed to inflict maximum psychological damage. The humans knew they could not win, so they settled for making sure we could not win either. Captain Holton came on the channel again. This time she was not laughing. She sounded tired, professional. Rexian commander. Let us talk. Teln perked up. They are ready to surrender. I was not so sure. Open the channel. Carefully, Holt's face appeared on our view screen. She was younger than I expected, covered in dust and blood, both human and Rexian. Behind her, I could see the ruins of her command center, sparkling wires, crumbling walls, the last stand of a dying colony. Here are your options, she said calmly, as if discussing weather instead of annihilation. You can keep fighting. Eventually you will kill all of us, but it will take days, maybe weeks. Your superiors will wonder why one battlecruiser needs so long to eliminate a mining outpost. Your crew will tell stories about the colony that would not die. Other human colonies will hear about this. They will learn. They will prepare. You will turn every minor skirmish into a bloodbath. Or? Theln asked, mandibles tight. Or you leave. Now. Declare victory if you want. Say we evacuated. Say we were destroyed. Say whatever helps you sleep at night. But you leave, and you tell your fleet command that humans are not worth fighting in close quarters. That we are too costly, too unpredictable, too crazy. Make us not worth the effort. It was a bluff. It had to be. But looking at the tactical display, at the mounting casualties, at the exhausted faces of our crew, I wondered, could we afford to call it? We could still destroy you, Telnu said. Total orbital bombardment. Nothing survives. True, Holt agreed. But then you have to explain why you glassed a mining colony, why you used enough firepower to destroy a military base on civilians. The Terran Federation will use that for propaganda. Other species will see it. You will look weak, afraid, unable to accept a simple surrender. You are not surrendering, I pointed out. No, Holt said, meeting my eyes through the screen. But I am giving you an exit. Take it, because the alternative is that we keep fighting, and I promise you we will make it hurt the entire way down. The channel went silent. Theln looked at me, really looked at me. Tactical assessment. I pulled up the projections, ran the numbers, factored in the mounting casualties, the damaged frigate, the exhausted troops, the time spent, the resources consumed. The answer was uncomfortable. If we continue, we will win, but the cost will be significant. And the precedent it sets, that humans can be beaten, but only with overwhelming force and acceptable losses. Every human colony becomes a potential outpost meridian. Command will not thank us for that lesson. Theln sat in silence for a long moment. Around us, the bridge crew waited. Outside, humans were still fighting, still holding, still refusing to die quietly. Finally, Theln spoke. Prepare to withdraw, sir. Grix looked shocked. Log it as a tactical repositioning. The colony was destroyed, survivors evacuated through hidden tunnels before our arrival. Mission accomplished. We are needed elsewhere. It was a lie. Everyone knew it was a lie. But it was a lie we could all live with. Better than the truth. That 50 humans with improvised weapons had fought a battlecruiser to a standstill through sheer, bloody-minded refusal to quit. As we pulled away from Outpost Meridian, I watched the surface on the view screen. The ruins were still smoking, and standing in the center of it all, barely visible through the haze, was Captain Reyna Holt. She raised her hand. Not in surrender, not in victory, just acknowledgement. warrior to warrior. I returned the gesture, though she could not see it. Felin noticed. "Do not tell me you respect them." "I do not have to respect them to fear them," I replied. "And I very much fear what happens when the rest of the galaxy learns what we just did." "We won," Feld insisted. "Did we?" The question hung in the air unanswered as the eternal judgment jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind a colony that should have been a footnote in our glorious campaign. Instead, it became something else entirely. A warning, a lesson, a nightmare scenario that tactical analysts like myself would study for years to come. Because here is what we learned about humans that day. They do not fight for victory. Victory is the goal of rational species, of civilizations that understand cost-benefit analysis, of warriors who know when they are beaten. Humans fight for something else entirely. They fight because surrender is not in their vocabulary. They fight because losing is just another reason to keep going. They fight to the end, whatever that end might be. And the truly terrifying part? Outpost Meridian was not even the end. It was just the beginning. The humans had learned something too. They had learned that they could bleed us. They had learned that we could be made to blink first. And once humans learn something like that, they never forget it. But that comes later. That comes in part 2 of this testimony. For now, understand this. When you encounter humans in battle, you have 2 choices. Overwhelming force, applied immediately, or do not engage at all. There is no middle ground. Because humans do not do middle ground. They do not know how. And that is precisely what makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. So, you want to know what happened next? Of course you do. Because the story of Outpost Meridian did not end when we jumped away. It spread. Like a virus through our fleet communications. Like a nightmare that infected every tactical briefing. Within 2 weeks, every Vrexian commander knew about the mining colony that refused to die. And worse, every human colony knew about it too. The Terran Federation turned Captain Raina Holt into a hero. They broadcast her stand across every system they controlled. Not the sanitized version either, the raw footage. Humans fighting with mining equipment. Humans bleeding. Humans dying, humans winning by simply not losing fast enough. It was propaganda gold for them. For us, it was a recruitment disaster. Soldiers started requesting transfers away from sectors with human colonies. Nobody wanted to be the next crew to spend weeks grinding down a population that should have folded in hours. High Command was, to put it mildly, displeased with Thelm. They reassigned him to inventory management on a supply station. His career was effectively over. As for me, they promoted me. Made me a special consultant on human tactical psychology. Lucky me, my job became understanding how humans think, how they fight, why they do the impossible. The answer I discovered was both simple and terrifying. They do not think like us, at all. 3 weeks after Outpost Meridian, I was assigned to Fleet Commander Brechtal's task force. Our mission was to capture a human agricultural station called Harvest Point 7, population of about 2,000, military presence of maybe 100 soldiers. Should have been easy, should have been routine. Brechtal was not Thelm. He was methodical, careful. He had read my report on Outpost Meridian a dozen times. "We will not make the same mistakes," he told me during the mission briefing. "We hit them hard, we hit them fast. No time to improvise, no time to adapt. We crush them before they know what is happening." I nodded. It was a sound strategy. On paper. Against any other species, it would have worked perfectly. But I had learned something at Outpost Meridian. Something that kept me awake during sleep cycles. Humans do not need time to improvise. They are always improvising. It is their default state. We arrived at Harvest Point 7 with overwhelming force. 4 battle cruisers, 8 frigates, enough firepower to conquer a small planet. We jammed their communications immediately. had deployed orbital mines to prevent escape, surrounded the station with fighters, every angle covered, every exit blocked, by the book. Perfect execution. Then we broadcast the surrender demand. Standard terms: evacuate peacefully and live, resist and die. We gave them 10 minutes to respond. Brechtel was confident. They cannot coordinate a defense without communications. They cannot call for help. They cannot even know what they are facing. This will be over before lunch. The 10 minutes passed in silence. Then, exactly at the deadline, every light on Harvest Point 7 went dark. Total blackout. Our sensors registered a massive power surge, then nothing. The entire station went offline. Did they destroy themselves? Grix asked. He had been transferred to Brechtel's command staff along with me. I think High Command wanted us to suffer together. In negative, the sensor officer reported. Life signs still present. Approximately 2,000 humans. They just cut all power. Why would they do that? Brechtel demanded. I had a bad feeling. Because they are about to do something that requires a lot of energy, and they do not want us to see it coming. I was right. 30 seconds later, the station exploded. Not destroyed. Exploded outward. Pieces of hull plating support structures, entire sections of the station blasted away into space. Deliberately, we controlled detonations that turned the agricultural facility into an expanding cloud of debris. And hidden in that debris, moving at high velocity toward our fleet, were hundreds of improvised missiles. The humans had packed cargo containers with explosives, fuel cells, anything volatile, and then launched them using the station's own pressure systems. It was insane. It was brilliant. It was completely unexpected. Our point defense systems engaged, destroying most of the incoming projectiles, but not all. 3 containers made it through. One struck a frigate, punching through its shields and detonating inside the hangar bay. Another clipped a battlecruiser, minimal damage, but it forced them to divert power to repairs. The third exploded near our flagship, close enough that the electromagnetic pulse disrupted our targeting systems for crucial seconds. Return fire, Brechtel shouted. Destroy that station. Sir, the tactical officer said carefully, the station is already destroyed. They did it themselves. Then destroy the debris. Destroy everything. We did. Our plasma batteries lit up space, vaporizing chunks of metal and composite materials. It was satisfying. It was also pointless. Because while we were busy shooting at rubble, the humans were already executing Phase 2 of their plan. Small craft began emerging from the debris field. Not military vessels, civilian transports, agricultural shuttles, maintenance pods. Every flying thing the station had possessed, now weaponized and piloted by humans with nothing to lose. They came at us from every direction, too small and too many for our capital ship weapons to effectively target. Each craft was loaded with more explosives. Each pilot was on a suicide run. They are ramming us. Someone screamed over the communication network. They are actually ramming us. Yes, they were. Because humans do not have a word for acceptable losses. They have a word for necessary sacrifice. There is a difference. One implies calculation. The other implies conviction. Most of the suicide craft were destroyed before impact. But again, not all. A transport loaded with fertilizer bombs, they made bombs from plant food, struck the frigate that had already taken damage. The explosion split it in half. Another craft, piloted by someone who clearly knew what they were doing, managed to get inside our fighter screen and detonate near a munitions ship. The secondary explosion was visible from the next star system. And through it all, I kept thinking about Captain Holt's words. You will turn every minor skirmish into a bloodbath. She had been right. We were fighting an agricultural station with the resources we should have reserved for a military fortress. And we were still taking casualties. Pull back, Brechtel ordered. Reform at safe distance. We will bombard from orbit. It was the smart call. But as we withdrew, something else happened. The debris field began transmitting, not on standard channels, on every frequency simultaneously. Emergency bands, commercial frequencies, even our own military channels. And the message was simple. Just coordinates, Harvest Point 7's location, and a single sentence repeated over and over. We are still here. The humans had rigged a transmitter to broadcast after the station's destruction, making sure everyone knew what happened, making sure other colonies would hear, making sure we could not hide this like we tried to hide Outpost Meridian. The information warfare was just as important to them as the actual fighting. Brechtel stared at the transmission with something close to horror. They planned this. All of it. The evacuation, the suicide runs, the broadcast. They knew they could not win, so they made sure we could not claim victory. They also made sure their people survived, I pointed out. Checked the life pod trajectories. Our sensors had been so focused on the attacking craft that we missed the obvious, hidden among the debris, camouflaged by thermal shielding and electronic countermeasures, were hundreds of life pods and escape vessels. The humans had evacuated their population during the chaos, not away from us, past us, using our own fleet as cover. By the time we realized what happened, they were already beyond our intercept range, scattering in every direction. We had destroyed an empty station, lost 2 ships, and the humans had escaped with minimal casualties. On paper, we won. In reality, we had been humiliated. Again, pursue them, Brechtel ordered. Sir, I said carefully, they are heading toward the asteroid belt. If we follow, they will have even more material to improvise with. Rocks, ice, minerals, everything they need to make more weapons. So what do you suggest? We let them go. We claim victory. We move to the next target before this becomes another propaganda disaster. Brechtel looked like he wanted to argue. Then he saw the expressions on his command staff, the exhaustion, the fear, the growing realization that fighting humans was not like fighting anyone else. He nodded slowly. Log it as a successful suppression action. Enemy scattered. Minimal friendly casualties. We moved to Sector 14 as scheduled. More lies. But what else could we do? Tell High Command that humans were beating us by losing on purpose? That they turned defeat into victory by simply refusing to play by the rules? That every engagement with them cost more than the territory was worth? The next incident happened at a human research station, then a trading post, then a refueling depot. Each time, the same pattern. The humans would fight with whatever they had available. They would improvise. They would sacrifice. They would make us bleed for every meter. And when they finally lost, they made sure we knew it was not worth winning. I started seeing patterns in the data. Human colonies were not fighting to hold territory. They were fighting to waste our time, to drain our resources, to force us to commit disproportionate forces to each engagement. It was asymmetric warfare on a scale we had never encountered, and it was working. Our logistics officers began reporting supply shortages. Our medical facilities were overwhelmed. Our crews were exhausted. Meanwhile, the Terran Federation was doing just fine. They evacuated colonies before we arrived. They regrouped in defensible positions. They learned from each battle and adapted faster than we could counter. Every time we destroyed a human outpost, they turned it into a lesson for the next one. Then came the incident at Relay Station Kappa. This one was different. This one was personal. Relay Station Kappa was a communications hub, heavily defended. Important strategic value. When we attacked, we expected serious resistance. What we got was a recorded message from a human commander named Lieutenant Felix Grant. Young guy, probably fresh out of their military academy. He appeared on our view screen with a smile that made my scales itch. Hello, Vrexian forces. Welcome to Kappa. We have been expecting you. In fact, we have been preparing for you. See, We heard about Outpost Meridian. We heard about Harvest Point 7. We learned from them. So, here is what is going to happen. You are going to attack this station. You are going to take casualties. You are going to eventually win. Because you have more ships and bigger guns. But here is the thing. We have rigged this entire facility to explode. Not right away. On a delay. A random delay. It could be an hour. Could be a day. Could be a week. You will never know when. So you can take this station. But you cannot use it. Because the moment you try, boom. And all your effort was for nothing. He paused, letting that sink in. Then continued. Or you can skip us entirely. Move to the next target. We will evacuate peacefully. No fight. No casualties. We will even leave some supplies behind as a gesture of goodwill. All you have to do is not waste your time here. Your choice. You have 1 hour to decide. Brechtal looked at me. He is bluffing. Probably, I agreed. But can we afford to call it? Even if there is a 10% chance he is telling the truth, we lose the station. And if he is not bluffing, we lose ships and crew trying to secure a facility we cannot use. We cannot let them dictate terms. They already are. They have been since Outpost Meridian. We just keep pretending otherwise. The argument went on for 30 minutes. Finally, Brechtal made the decision. We bypass Kappa. Mark it as non-essential. We have other targets. We jumped away. Lieutenant Grant kept his word. The station was evacuated when we returned 2 weeks later with engineering teams. They left supplies, food, medical equipment, even a note thanking us for being reasonable. The audacity was infuriating. But the note also contained intelligence we could use: troop movements, supply routes, defensive positions, accurate intelligence. It was a trap, of course. The intelligence was real but outdated. By the time we acted on it, the humans had already moved. But the message was clear. They would reward us for not fighting. They would punish us for engaging. Carrot and stick. Applied to interstellar warfare. I wrote a report. 20 pages analyzing human tactical doctrine. The core finding was simple. Humans fight a war of cost versus benefit. They cannot match our firepower. They cannot match our numbers. So they make every battle cost more than it's worth. They turn every victory into a question. Was it worth it? Should we keep going? Is this sustainable? High Command read my report. They hated it, because it suggested something unthinkable. That we were losing a war we were winning. That victory was possible but too expensive to achieve. That the humans had found our weakness, not our shields, not our weapons, our willingness to accept casualties for marginal gains. Then everything changed. 6 months after Outpost Meridian, the Terran Federation launched a counter-offensive. Not where we expected. Not against our occupied territories. They hit our supply lines, our logistics hubs, our communication relays, all the infrastructure we needed to sustain a long campaign. And they did it with the same suicidal determination we had seen from their colonies. Small strike teams, improvised weapons, high casualties accepted in exchange for disproportionate damage inflicted. Our advance stalled, then reversed. We pulled back to defensive positions, consolidated our forces, tried to protect what we had gained. But the humans kept coming. Not in massive fleets, in small groups. Raiders, saboteurs, guerrilla fighters who struck and vanished before we could respond. They were everywhere and nowhere, and they were bleeding us dry. 1 year after Outpost Meridian, High Command called for a ceasefire, not a surrender, not a victory, just a cessation of hostilities while we negotiated terms. The humans agreed. They even gave us favorable terms. They kept most of the disputed territory. We kept our dignity. On paper, it looked like a reasonable compromise. In reality, everyone knew the truth. The humans had won, not by defeating us, by making us not want to fight anymore. I attended the peace conference. Saw Captain Raina Holt there, representing the Terran Federation Colonial Defense Forces. She looked older, tired, but alive. We made eye contact across the diplomatic hall. She nodded. I nodded back. No words necessary. We both knew what had happened. What would always happen when humans were pushed to fight. After the conference, I requested a transfer to the diplomatic corps. I was done with tactical analysis, done with trying to understand how to beat humans in combat, because I had finally learned the real lesson. You do not beat humans in combat. You either overwhelm them so completely they never get a chance to fight back, or you do not fight them at all. There is no middle ground. My replacement, a young analyst named Corvan, asked me for advice before I left. How do I predict what humans will do? He asked earnestly. What models should I use? What tactical frameworks? I laughed, not cruelly, just wearily. You want to predict humans? Here is your framework. Whatever you think they will do something else. Whatever you think is impossible, they will attempt. Whatever you think is crazy, they will make work. And when you finally think you understand them, they will surprise you again. That is not a tactical weakness. That is their tactical strength. They are unpredictable because they do not think in terms of acceptable outcomes. They think in terms of necessary actions. And those two things are not the same. Corvan looked confused. But there must be patterns, predictable behaviors, ways to counter them. There is one pattern, I said. One consistent behavior you can always count on. Humans do not fight for victory. They fight to the end, whatever that end might be. Win, lose, die, survive. It does not matter to them. What matters is that they fought, that they tried, that they did not quit. You can kill humans. You cannot make them quit. And until you understand the difference between those two things, you will never understand how to fight them. I left him with that thought and transferred to my new posting. Peaceful work, treaty negotiations, cultural exchanges. No more combat analysis. No more studying human warfare. I was done with all that. Except I am not. Not really. Because I still think about Outpost Meridian. About Captain Holt standing in the ruins of her colony. About Lieutenant Grant smiling on the view screen. About all those humans who chose to fight when they should have run. And these who chose to die when they should have surrendered. Or who chose to make us remember them rather than let us forget. That is the thing about humans. You cannot forget them. They will not let you. Even when they lose, they win, because they make you pay. They make you question. They make you wonder if it was worth it. And once you start wondering that, once you start calculating the cost of victory against the price of peace, you have already lost. You just do not know it yet. So here I am, a Vrexian who studied humans, or who fought humans, who learned to fear humans, not because they are stronger, not because they are smarter, but because they are relentless, because they turn every disadvantage into a weapon, because they fight to the end, and the end is whatever they decide it is, not what you decide, not what logic dictates, what they decide. And that is the lesson I want you to remember. If you ever encounter humans in combat, if you ever think about going to war with them, remember this. You might win the battles. You might take the territory. You might achieve every objective on paper. But the humans will still be there, still fighting, still making you pay, still making you wonder if it was worth it. Because humans do not fight for victory. They fight to the end, and the end is always, always further away than you think. That is my testimony. That is my warning. Believe it or not, your choice. Just remember it when you are standing in your own version of Outpost Meridian, wondering how a handful of humans with improvised weapons are making your life hell. Remember that this is what they do. This is who they are. And this is why, despite every advantage we had, despite every battle we won, despite every strategic objective we achieved, The Vrexian coalition is no longer at war with the Terran Federation. Not because we lost, but because we got smart enough to stop trying to win. Learn from our mistakes. Do not fight humans unless you absolutely have to. And if you absolutely have to, make it quick. Make it overwhelming. Make it so fast they cannot improvise. Because the moment they get time to think, the moment they get resources to work with, the moment they decide to make you pay for every centimeter, you are already in trouble. Trust me. I know. I was there. I saw it happen. And I am spending the rest of my career making sure it never happens again. Not because I am afraid of losing, but because I am terrified of what it costs to win. That is the truth about fighting humans. That is the reality we learned. That is the lesson that cost us 200 ships, thousands of soldiers, and our confidence in our own military superiority. Humans do not fight for victory. They fight to the end. And that makes all the difference.